What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? I am Delusions, and today we have got some big changes that are taking place on the Delusions account. So, I have made the big swap going from a class that I really loved playing, was very familiar with, being ENE Dark Lord, and now we're trying out something a little bit different, and that's going to be ENE Dark Knight. So, with this class, it has become an absolute monster in PvP and the arena. So I wanted to see what all the hype was about and try to learn a little bit more about it and see what I can't do to put my own spin on things, um, to be able to provide a good build guide for you guys. Though I don't know everything right now, I wanted to give just a brief introduction to how my class is set up now, as well as what some of the gameplay looks like as far as the arena from my standpoint, and we can discuss a little bit more as we go through. So, starting off with the base stats that I have currently, this is what it's looking like. Now, you'll notice that a lot of things are quite similar to how it was on my ENE Dark Lord. Um, with the exception of my attack success rate and my defense success rate. So this class right here primarily relies heavily on damage reflection. And right now we're sitting comfortably at 52% with 42.5 million HP. So as long as I can keep that reflect active through timing out my different skills, it will help keep me alive a little bit longer, as well as be able to provide some great defensive damage going back to the opponent that I'm facing. But again, this is just a brief overview of what my base stats are looking like. Um, and then we will dive off into how I have my skill set up, and then some of the changes that I'll be making going into future levels. Um, Stats, as always, we're only putting enough into agility and vitality we aren't touching at all. We're only putting enough into agility to be able to wear our armor, and then the rest is going to be distributed enough to the point to where we can gain all of our ENE skills as well as all of our strength skills, and then any stat points left over from there will be fed right back into ENE, because that is our main class stat. So from there, we'll go ahead and dive over into our skills, take a look at what we've got here. So again, we're not putting so much into our basic PvE skills, but we are trying to prioritize getting all of these skills leveled up. Now, with the added feature that we gained from completing our level 600 class change, we now can go through and we can purchase some skill upgrade cores that are going to allow me to finish out getting Earth's Judgment maxed out, as well as Lightning Power, and then coming down and completing Flame Slash. Now, the reason why these three skills are important is, one, we're going to be inflicting some pretty heavy skill damage on top of what of our skill damage bonus is currently. Um, but we're also gaining these combo hits, and then once we max it out, we'll be able to start inflicting bleed on when the enemy is hit, and then that'll all pay off when we start to use Flame Slash. And as you can see, we were able to pick up, just one bleeding effect through our lightning power. But again, this is going to be a big one too. When casting lightning power to targets with HP below 50%, your combo hit is immediately activated and then it resets that stack. Um, so that's again more damage on top, that we can then turn around and utilize for later. So with Flame Slash is pretty much upgraded through Berserk Element and inflicts skill damage to targets to 1. So in Arena, this is going to be, the most beneficial, because we're not running into multiple enemies within the arena. But through that, we're able to have a 10% chance to inflict 5 times damage on our targets on top of being able to inflict 200% skill damage, or I guess I should say 250% damage overall. Um, but this one right here is going to allow us to stack that skill damage plus 10% even further up to 30% for every bleeding stack that we've applied to our target. Why is this big? Is because if we hop back over here and look at our direct skill damage, let's see here. I probably already overlooked it. Yeah, so our increased skill damage, 922%. So that is just base. So once our buffs and stuff start rolling through and start proccing, that number is of course going to jump up even higher, and then the benefits from our skills are only going to, surpass that even more. Now, when we start looking over into our properties, I've only focused on defense and attack first. Uh, as always, like I prioritize with any of my build guides, is making sure that we have a very consistent defense tree and making sure that we're maxing out this tree before moving on to the other. Now, I still have about, what is that, 18 levels to be able to complete this, and then I will probably end up going back through and either picking up something like this right here, Wings Master, or hopping back over into the defense and trying to max out Wings Veterancy, just to gain that additional HP, which I want to say would probably put me up to around 47, or possibly even 48 million HP. But we could also save that and then start moving over into either the common tree, picking up some of the skill damage reduction, up to 15%, or we could continue on this right side right here and start gaining even more HP from there, as well as more attack. So per 500 points of ENE, would grant us 600 attack power. Um, this one right here is really nice if we could get it for just a um, single boost. Granted, the 6%, just being an arena is going to be pretty big itself, but at the same time, if in Chrysos bosses or Castle Siege or Chaos Castle, that's where this skill right here, Enemy of All PvP, is really going to shine. But then we could turn around, and if we really wanted to rely heavily on our healing potions, we could boost that further through the mounts, being the Seahorse, or we could turn out and max this out so that anytime that we use an arena potion, which is already going to have a high benefit, this would only stack onto that even further, being able to allow us to recover millions of HP versus just the standard rate. Um, but then this would be a huge one. This would be one of the routes that I would want to try to max out if I was going the common route, just because 15% damage reduction is going to be huge on any class, doesn't matter what playstyle you have. Being able to reduce that damage that's being thrown at you is massive. That's going to keep you in the fight longer, allow you to proc your skills, and be able to stun that enemy and hopefully get the upper hand on the fight. Um, Here is another one. Damage of weapon and secondary weapon is plus 6%, all the way up to 90% if you can max that out. Now, this right-hand side of the common tree is probably going to be where your most benefit comes from. Um, but we're also going to be able to pick up even more skill damage, per 500 points of ENE, upwards to 15%. So now this could stack, you know, quite crazy if we did a solid, pure 100% ENE build. Um, we could really start to get that to shine a lot, but there are some of those strength skills that we're going to be relying on as well. Again, this is something that I've still got to learn a lot about, before I start releasing a heavy build guide on there and what I feel is going to be the best for this class. Granted, unlike the other attack and defense trees, instead of these costing 10, now they're costing 15, so it requires heavy investment. It's not going to be something that we're going to be able to live out of this common property, because again, we do have some nice things that are coming out of elemental as well. Um, but for every fifth attack, depending on your attack speed, that is going to be something that's going to be really nice, and your attack skills damage is going to be plus 100%. Um, and then it just goes on and on and on. We've got a lot of benefits that again come out of this tree. And then same on the left side, it's just not as heavy and really focused around really maximizing the overall output of the damage that we're going to be able to provide in any given fight. Now this one right here caught my interest. For every 3 fully equipped sets, so that's all the sets that you're going to be picking up. Um, when your lightning element attacks a player, it inflicts damage equal to up to 5% of that target's max HP. So if your lightning elemental has a lot of attack speed, if it's really built up, you could kind of see this property shining quite a bit. But as we hop over here into this elemental tree, this is where I really kind of piqued my interest a little bit, because as we're starting to gain a lot of more of these elemental attacks, elemental defenses, um, through some of the gear changes that led up to the 600 class change, um, this right here is pretty big. So when attacking the target with elemental attack, your attack speed increases by 10%. That could be really big. Same with this one right here. This one right here I think was going to be really, really nice. So when Shockwave 1 is activated, 100% of chance of inflicting 200% additional skill damage. Now this is not just oh, maybe it's going to happen. No, this is a guarantee. 100% chance of this inflicting 200% skill damage, on top of what we are already providing through all of our buffed abilities as well. So this is really going to be a big one to maximize our damage output. And then this one right here is, so when using your elemental attack, 2% chance of inflicting stun effect on the target with characters following attack. Lasts for 1 second, and granted that doesn't change, but the trigger chance changes. So upwards to 20% of chance of inflicting an additional stun on that target. And a 30-second cooldown typically is going to be reset probably mid-fight on your second round. So I think that having that additional couple stuns throughout a fight could really, really turn the tables on, regardless of who you're fighting. Um, and then, of course, if we're looking over here on the right side, so when your element is active, you're going to get to decrease your opponent's attack speed um, upwards to 10%. God's blessing, or I guess it'd be Jupiter's blessing, kind of catering off of God's blessing, just increasing that damage reduction. Um, and the nice thing is it's not a low chance. So 50% chance of damage reduction increasing by 10%. So again, if we start playing into the common tree and the elemental tree and cut back on, say, like the attack tree or something like that, in aspects of areas that we know that we probably aren't going to benefit from as much. So if we hop back over into the attack tree on this left side here, usually this is always going to be um, targeted for your little elemental that follows you around. So, for every attack with your lightning element, chance to decrease charge cooldown, which is nice, don't get me wrong. But I feel like, if we were able to tap into some of the commons and some of these elementals, we could always come back and fill in these blanks. But until I know fully of what is going to be the best avenue or the route to take, I don't want to make any, big rash calls or anything like that. Um, but with all of that, um, let's go ahead and hop over and take a look at how we're looking in the arena. And granted, I am no expert. I still have not quite figured out what the best way is to utilize these skills, what the timing should look like. I've had a little bit of guidance here and there, um, but we all know how I play. I'm going to end up tweaking some things and making it my own in some way or another. Um, so this is our standings in the arena. As we can see, we still have quite the lead on some of these, with 700 points and about 30, 28 to 30 million CP over second place, 40 million above third place, and yeah, some of these guys gave me a run for my money, even with being that high CP. So we'll start off and we'll look at our um, highest ranking strength Dark Knight, and we'll see how this all plays out. Now, Laura Fione is a member of my guild and has a pretty interesting build of his own. Um, but again, this is just how Reflect can really turn the tides on any given PvP match. Now, what I've been trying to do is figure out the best way to time some of these skills, because like your Moonlight Slash and your Moonwave both have 3-second timers that are initiated, that you gain the buff of either additional lifesteal or reflect. And then you get your Whirlwind Slash that also provides a decent little bit of reflect there. But you saw how quickly that match went. And now this is Porter Bass here. He is also in my guild, but he is a very, very strong ENE DK as well. So we're going to take a look and we're going to see how this looks from the outside looking in. Again, this is just a defense, so he has a different tactic that he likes to use, um, in which, he tries to go ahead and have me trigger his reflect chance just so that he can kind of whittle me down a little bit before he starts popping all of his buffs and gets his reflect going as well. As you can see, I stay pretty low throughout the duration of this fight, and he even turns around and takes me on the first round. Um, but with that being said, we're going to turn around and be able to counter up and be able to take home, a victory on the second round and followed by the third round. But again, it's interesting to see how all of these different playstyles can be so different yet yield the same outcome. Um, my biggest thing when I was ENE Dark Lord is going into a fight with any kind of DK, just because of one, both strength and ENE have access to reflect regardless of how they want to build or how they want to utilize things, um, and that's very, very dangerous when it comes down to having a pure crit based um, class such as an ENE Dark Lord, because having that damage reflected to you when you're doing 100+ mil crits is devastating. It could really put you out of play. Now this guy here, this is the guy that holds the third place spot in our arena, and he is an AGI Dark Wizard from the other server. I've had a chance to talk with him. We'll be working with him on his future builds for his class. But let's go ahead and take a look at what he's got going on. Again, AGI Dark Wizard, an extremely, extremely powerful class as well. Has a lot of support um, built into the kit with their 0 HP property, as well as being able to provide some massive, massive damage when it comes down to that poison dot that it applies. As you can see, again, I'm staying pretty low health, and even, staying at 0 for a little bit of the times. Now, you'll notice that I never really had all of these issues with my ENE Dark Lord, and the reason being behind that is just because the healing properties of that class were just so high. And that's what makes it so hard to really side with this class and want to stick with it, um, just because I'm so partial to it and I'm so comfortable with the ENE Dark Lore, but I'm willing to give it a shot, and stick with it for at least 50 levels, just to see if it's going to be something that I'm going to be able to play around with. But again, thank you all for tuning into this video, and if you see anything that I can improve on, if you see some things that I may have not touched on that you wanted to, kind of provide a little bit of insight on, leave me a comment, shoot me a message in my Discord, reach out to me, help me out. You know, I spend all of my time, bouncing between the MU Discord as well as my own Discord and helping people with all their build guides, but hey, I'm no stranger to taking in information, so if you've got it for me, let me know. But with that, I appreciate all of y'all's support and your continued um, support, for me developing these videos. I look forward to helping out more. But with that, thanks again, everybody, and I am Delusions, and I am out.